Make It Right, the manufacturing podcast.
Welcome to the Make It Right podcast. I'm Janet Eastman, and this week on the show, we're going to look at workplace HSE, health, safety, and environment. My guest on the show believes an injury and illness-free workplace is achievable and that there's no reason for a workplace injury or illness. It's just an excuse, and all losses of containment can be prevented. Andrew Morris is an HSE consultant based in Bangkok, and he's been on the HSE journey for some 42 years with a variety of companies across all continents. Andrew, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Janet.
So tell me a little bit about your background. 42 years is a long time to be pursuing health, safety, and environment. How did you get started?
Okay, basically, I started in the UK. I worked in a packing operation, and I worked myself up the organization. And as a result of that, I've had 30 years in operations on all continents except Antarctica. And I've had 20 years actually focused on HSE. I mean, obviously, 42 and a half years, everybody wants safety in their operations, but I've actually had 25 years in HSE with other priorities such as regulatory compliance, quality, project management, security, and acquisitions.
Okay, fair enough. So just to clarify as we go through this conversation, because I'm not sure if the acronym is going to change, but there's HSE, there's SHE, and there's EHS, which it's basically all the same thing, except you put the focus on either health, safety, or environment at the start of that acronym. Is that correct?
That's correct. Different companies have different priorities, but basically they put HSE, health, safety, and environment in one basket and work on making it improve.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what HSE encompasses. It's health, safety, and environment. But in your travels around the world, have you found one or two of the three areas gets more focused depending on the industry then?
As far as I'm concerned, you get more focus based on current and past experiences. So in different countries, different companies, you obviously get today a lot more focus on health. Gets more attention because of the education and media attention as people learn about the industries that are close by or focused on by the media. And usually the media focus is driven by bad news rather than good news. So what have the industries done or not done to make their industry sustainable? And are they a community-involved operation? Environmentally, one can say that obviously there is a high concern in Brazil concerning mining, in China and India, the impact of industry upon the atmosphere, waterways, and weather. In Japan, nuclear waste in the sea, the effect on fish. Thailand, fish and shrimp farming, its impact upon rivers and the local environment. In Indonesia, the ongoing clearance of jungle for farming with attendant burning of cleared vegetation and areas, and its impact upon Singapore, Malaysia, Kampuchea, as well as Indonesia itself. Further, water crises and water-stressed countries, particularly in the Middle East, are now transparent in showing that they are in this situation. Other countries, such as China, are now dealing with their shortage of potable water because they fully recognize this stress. However, seasonal water shortages in Brazil, Australia, India, and Thailand continue to threaten and severely disrupt agriculture and communities. Therefore, today with global warming, environmental concerns are probably the highest concern, even over health.
Wow. Okay. So what usually prompts a company to actually start looking really hard at their HSE practices?
Well, in my opinion, the company looks at its HSE practices because it becomes so blindingly clear that the incidents and injuries that they are having are getting to a point where they're impacting the day-to-day management on operations to the extent that not only does it impact production, it impacts their focus, and there must be a step change. Yes, insurance premium and constant bad PR are a factor, but like all significant changes, it must come from the company and its employees by leadership at one level or another. It could be that the union for its members takes a stance and says this cannot continue. The operations manager may recognize, he or she may see that there is a significant issue, or a safety champion such as a health and safety environmental supervisor or a shift leader or charge hand start to make changes in the way that safety is addressed on their shift, on a day-by-day basis, and with their people. The dialogue starts. A company that has 2 to 5 substantial lost time cases with either amputation or severe burns begins to say, who is the next one who is going to get hurt? I don't want to be that person. Additionally, the media today do not make it easy for a company that keeps hitting the headlines locally for things that it has done badly. Whistleblowers can influence this situation. An internal investigation by the company of one of these events may reveal far more than was originally understood to have happened. So the change begins.
Yeah, I keep thinking, as you're talking there, I kept thinking about there was a clothing manufacturer here in North America that was having all their stuff made over in Asia somewhere, and there was a massive fire or something happened at the factory and people died, and there was massive pushback right from the customers, like the people who actually bought the clothes, all the way down the line to the point where that factory had to completely change how they did everything and improve the working conditions for all their people. So bad PR can come right from the actual consumer, right?
Correct. This was an event in Bangladesh.
Yeah, right. Okay. So what's the first question that management should be asking themselves when they start looking at like a health, safety, and environment issues?
Well, as we said at the beginning, this is a journey. So if we're going to take the journey, are we serious? If we are serious, it's not about being a project. It's not about having a completion date. It's a way of life. It's a path to follow that we will continuously do forever. Therefore, if we are serious about health and safety and environment, do we have a mission? Does management buy into a mission, a vision statement, and a policy? Do we have the leadership and the necessary focus to deliver on what we say we're going to do? Do we have an HSE manager or professional at a level in the organization who can assist management in putting a HSE plan together, putting the corrective and preventive actions of the HSE issues into place with support from management and departments and sections and teams? It is not the HSE person who can do this alone. It has to be a team effort, a company-wide effort to actually sustain and improve any HSE effort.
Sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So what are the issues? A company may have particular issues. They could be exposure, they could be unsafe guarding, but are they recorded? Have they actually been investigated professionally with root cause analysis? What is actually causing the injury, and how can we actually fix it? And what are the corrective actions, and have we taken them? And are we continuously sustaining them? Because it's one thing to have a corrective action, but are you actually continuing with preventive actions so that the lesson, the wake-up call that has occurred, is sustained? So what are the priority HSE issues in any operation? what is life-threatening, what will put the company out of business, what will make the company not famous, but infamous. Once we begin to understand and report the issues properly, then we begin to understand the resources that are needed to deal with them. And it may not just be the HSE manager, it may be engineering requirements, it may be the design, the layout of the operation. It can be many, many different things that we have to do to take the steps to improve the operation.
You've pursued these improvements all over the world. So is there a difference in the focus from country to cultures? And, when you get in there, what level are they at?
Yes, cultures is a challenge. In many places, the leader of the operation or the company needs to be won over in pursuing HSE excellence. Obviously, when you walk in the door to start the journey, there's no perception of excellence. It's about stopping people getting hurt. We've discussed that good HSE can be good business. Obviously, if you are not having accidents, you can say that you have a injury-free workplace. If you are not having transport incidents and that all of your loads go out and are delivered to the customer in good condition, on time and full, then you have a good story to tell. So if you can demonstrate in a culture of caring and having a caring nature for employees and neighbors with very little expense at the beginning, then in countries Korea, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, Japan, even Thailand and the USA will embrace an ongoing step change with the introduction of personal protective equipment, of permits to work, first aiders, trained, able to deal with simple injuries, forklift truck training, emergency response basics. These may seem like all the basic requirements, but they still don't exist in many countries and many companies. Or they've been there, but they've disappeared. And so once these basics are in place and that we have an HSE dialogue taking place, change and improvement will follow. But the leader has to see that there is value. And once he can understand that there is value, then there will be these dialogues at different levels, at what we would call town meetings, at toolbox meetings, whatever vehicle you can use to help people begin to understand what HSE is all about.
So you talk about winning over the leader, and I'm sure you've run into this problem many, many times. What do you say? Like, how do you win over that leader to say this is going to be good for your business? It's going to improve your business. It's not going to cost you money. How do you win them over?
It depends where the company is. Obviously, if they have just had a very serious injury or incident, then it becomes an imperative for the company to improve and change. On the other hand, in a company where nothing particularly bad is happening, somebody will say to you, why do you want to do this? And the impetus to get that to happen is to try and show exactly the gap where the plant is having problems. So very often it's about taking a walkabout in the plant with or without the manager and come back to him and give him feedback about what are the issues in the plant, what near misses are happening, what actual incidents are happening, and what, for the sake of just mere seconds or mere moments, could have been something far worse than he could possibly imagine. So it's about sales and marketing to probably one of the hardest audiences that you can imagine. So whatever you do, you need to be very professional in your approach to dealing with it. Don't oversell the idea, don't exaggerate. Make sure that what you are talking about is based on hard fact and on what the consequences could be, whether it could be a finger cut, whether it could be an electric shock, whether it could be a burn, or something far, far more serious. So the selling and marketing of HSE has to be done in a way that it's credible, believable, and that it will add value to the business.
So when you're doing these walks through factories and whatnot, looking for these problems, are there common problems that you see?
Yes, I mean, we look at many types of issues in the safety improvement matrix. So those items that are in the matrix are many of the things that can be missing, can only be being partially done, and are there actually procedures that people not only are trained, not only audited on whether they're actually performing what they're doing, and are they only performing when you're standing next to them? Is it something that is entrenched, that will live on and will stop people getting hurt? So it's very, very important that these things are regularly refreshed and that supervision, management, and employees all understand that this is part of what we need to do to sustain safety improvement in any operation.
That's Andrew Morris. He's a health, safety, and environment consultant based in Bangkok. Next week on the show, he's going to be my guest again, and he'll outline how an HSE program can benefit your corporate social responsibility, how you can learn to recognize safety issues on the job, and how to get started with some practical tips. He'll also explain exactly what a safety matrix is. I hope you'll join us then. That's our show for this week. I'm Janet Eastman, and until next time, please find out more manufacturing news by following us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can also subscribe to our podcast at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks very much for listening to the Make It Right podcast.